Welcome to the latest episode of We Went to Miami, and I am joined by truly a Miami icon, mechanical engineer major turned into someone who is just casually telling me about film festivals they're attending. Tre King, welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I think for our listeners who may not know who you are, in your own words, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I am a multifaceted creative. I specialize in filmmaking, screenwriting, photography, and fashion. I'm based out of Chicago, Illinois, and I graduated from Miami in 2021 and have been in Chicago ever since. It's actually so funny you said mechanical engineering because that's what I started with, but it's not the
First
major I ended up
semester.
graduating with.
Yeah. Didn't you if I was, like, reading up on you naturally before this, didn't you drop mech engineering your, like, spring semester freshman year?
I did. And from there, I switched to media and culture arts management, and I never looked back.
So, I mean, let's get into that. That's quite the pivot from mechanical engineering, very STEM, to then a hard pivot into what is a very creative field and major. What sparked that for you?
Well, first, there's nothing wrong with mechanical engineering, and I'm a very analytical and logical type of person who also loves math. But I think it was first semester, there was something inside of me that was like, I don't necessarily want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And if I graduate with this particular degree, I'm gonna wish I had done something different. And so that is when I reached out to my advisor and a couple of other friends for some guidance. And based on my interests and what I wanted to explore, I eventually found media and culture arts management. And since then, it's been really great. I feel like I've been connected to people and experiences that I wouldn't have been connected to otherwise.
I love that. And you mentioned like you just knew this wasn't something you wanted to do for the rest of your life. What did that look like for you? Like, was there a gut feeling? Was there a class? Like, how did you know?
It was a lot of internal conflict, but some of it was simply just being in rooms where I didn't feel motivated and
Yeah.
didn't feel passionate about it. And I tell people this sometimes when they ask for advice when it comes to college, being understanding what rooms you don't want to be in is just as important as discovering the rooms you do.
I
And
love that.
so it was just something inside of me that was like, I don't know if I necessarily feel passionate about this particular area of study. So let me explore that before it's too late.
And what did that exploration into media look like? Had you always been someone who was doing media on the side? Was it something that was like not a guilty pleasure, but like something you always had in, or was it a college discovery?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
When I was thinking about what to change my major to, I realized that as a kid, I had a passion for television, films, and actually seeing myself as a part of those fictional worlds. And so I leaned on that when it came to media and culture. And that's one of the many things I loved about the media and culture program is how broad it was and how it gave you a full scope of the larger world of media, whether it be television and film, business, things like that. And so I started it not really knowing what to expect.
Mm.
And I think I almost kind of assumed that I would continue to changing my major till I found something that stuck.
Yeah.
But surprisingly enough, that stuck. And ever since then, it's been great.
I love that. And, while I was reading some of the other interviews you had done, there's this quote you have that actually goes crazy. And you say, choose what you want for yourself and not what somebody else wants for you. Make sure you're
Right.
passionate about it and that you can wake up 30 years from now and be glad you made those choices. Um, First of all, I love that. But I would also say a lot of college students don't have the foresight to even think about themselves 30 years from then, let alone like 5 years from then. How did you have the mindset of like, I'm really thinking about the rest of my life while I'm here in this moment?
Great question. Well, let me not say always. I think as a teenager and then going into my early 20s, there was I call it a gut feeling, but I think it's in a way, your future self talking to you.
I love that.
Because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you just know, or sometimes you don't know exactly where you want to go. You just know it's not the
There.
position you're currently in.
Mm.
So yes, you're right. A lot of college students, including myself, didn't know what 30 years down the line looked like. I think even now, I don't know what even 10 years down the line is going to look like. But I think there's something special about listening to your inner voice. And that's why I said, don't rely on what other people's expectations are for you, whether it be family, friends, or peers, and go with something that is going to get you out of bed every morning, even if it requires you to take a non-traditional type of career path.
I love that. And when you made that pivot to media and that program in itself, did it almost feel like you were sacrificing a traditional career path for a non-traditional? Like, walk me through the emotions of the switch.
Oh, I think I had a general understanding that the field I was going in requires me to be untraditional in a lot of ways, and I just kept telling myself, well, it's not going to be like a straight up 9 to 5. It's not going to be conventional like a lot of people's jobs are, whether it be like doctor, engineer, or like scientist. But I think I felt a lot of that after I graduated and was like, oh, like this, not only is the job market not good, but I willingly went into this career path that I knew was going to be untraditional. So I
Yeah,
was starting to see a lot of that. So it was very hard and I went through a lot of internal and identity struggles. But seeing where I am now is what I was talking about earlier, my future self kind of talking to me, kind of being like, everything's going to be okay. And even if you need to struggle a little bit more, it's all going to be worth it. And I think that feeling is so strong. And of course, not everybody could think like that. But me being such a forward-looking thinker, I always have this thought in the back of my head that everything's going to work out simply because I said so.
I love that. And I think what you're saying now is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners because one, you graduated right out of the pandemic, 2021. I mean,
Hmm.
crazy year, but also like I think there's a lot of sacrifice in your college experience there as well. Not only was it untraditional, but also you were somehow still insanely involved. I mean, you were the first Black homecoming king of Miami, which is crazy, followed with Carissa, who was first Black woman homecoming court in a really crazy time in the world, but also like to be recognized as someone who is just excellent and embodies Miami in a time where like the whole world has shifted. You're figuring
Mm,
things out. You're anxious about what's going on. I mean, our listeners, I think so many of them are also graduating in this time period of a really volatile job market. Um, for those listeners who may not have that voice inside that is telling them it's going to be okay, did you always have yours or did you have to kind of get rid of the noise to have the connection you have with your future self that you do now?
I did not always have it. I think I slowly began training it, kind of like a muscle. I think the more I took a chance on myself, the more I took risks, and the more, like you said, I got involved on campus, the more I started to see that mindset playing out in front of me. So the more like organizations I was a part of, the more opportunities I got, the more I started training that muscle because I was using the evidence of what I had already seen and what was already unfolding in front of me. It's interesting that you mentioned homecoming because when I first won, I did think I was the first black, and then till I found out it was Jermaine Thomas the year before me.
Oh, no
But
way.
I think I found out that it was Carissa and I who were made the first black pair, which makes much
Okay.
more sense. Yeah.
That's no, and that's a great clarification. That's also so funny you say that because I think I read a Miami article that listed you as the first Black homecoming king. So, um, that's on me. I'm so glad you called that out.
That's
But also,
okay.
that's even then when I was reading that, I was like, I can't believe 2021 was like the first pair, but that makes sense because I'm losing my years, but we had recently elected our first Black student body
Yes,
president.
Jalen Perkins. Shout out to Jalen.
Jalen. I love and adore that man. Yeah, so I feel like, I mean, a very formative time of Miami because Jalen was what, 2018. And then we had Janie a couple years after, and then
Yes.
Jermaine Thomas, and then you and Carissa. So it's like you were part of this era of Miami that started really celebrating its people, giving minority voices the uplift they deserve, but also the credit they deserve for what they were doing on campus. And I was
Yes.
also, was that daunting for you at all? Of like getting a platform that your peers were getting and then finding yourself finally receiving credit for what you had been doing?
Great question. I think in terms of Homecoming King,
Well,
I
yeah.
had done so much before that, and I was just grateful that my peers, my friends, and even people I didn't know were celebrating me in that way.
Yeah.
But it didn't necessarily change my mindset of how I was perceived on campus. I think I was in a lot of different spaces, and I think I was in a lot of different places where my identity, all of my identities were celebrated. I think Homecoming King, though, to answer your question, was the icing on the cake
Yeah.
and a way for me to be like, wow, this is like a wonderful accomplishment. And I'm really grateful that everyone took the time to actually vote for me and be intentional about it. But I think it was also a way for me to look back at my Miami career and see how intentional I had been. Because had I not been as intentional, I probably wouldn't have been able to win.
I also won homecoming my senior year, and I just remember, like, kind of feeling silly for being so proud of it, but I really
Hmm.
was. I'm like, even I look back on that time and that recognition, and, like, it's probably, like, a top 5 Miami core memory
It
for
is. It really is. So, I mean, it does feel good. But had I lost, I wouldn't have thought that my
No,
experiences leading up to that point were a waste, you know?
absolutely not. Yeah, I completely get what you mean. And so, you know, you're riding this high of, like, really being celebrated your senior year, but then you also mentioned that, like, there was anxiety and uncertainty about, like, what looked next because you had an untraditional career path. What was the journey from Oxford to Chicago? And did you land in Chicago having something lined up?
The journey was a reality check for sure. So I graduated spring 21, and then I entered my graduate program at Columbia College Chicago in the fall of
Oh,
2021. So
okay.
it was a very quick shift that definitely taught me a lot about the real world. So I spent about 2 years in that program before I graduated. But then I spent nearly a year looking for full-time work. So that year that I spent looking for full-time work was one of the biggest reality checks I had ever experienced because now I'm not only experiencing life on my own outside of an academic institution, having been fully graduated, I'm also experiencing not having anything lined up for myself. So I think that was a way for me to bridge the gap between the life that I knew and the life that I wanted to create for myself. So I spent a lot of time soul searching, doing independent contract work here and there before I landed something that was full time and something that I'm also very passionate about. But looking back at where that position has taken me and where I am now, I look back on those struggles and those darker days with gratitude because had I not gone through that, I probably wouldn't be as grateful to be where I am currently.
I love that. And I think so many people, with the job market being the way it is, I feel like I've seen a large rise, or at least like, if not a large rise, I'm just older and I'm perceiving more now, I think,
Right.
of like folks who are in very similar boats where they graduate and like you're kind of sold this dream when you graduate that like you'll have something lined up. I think Miami overall does a great job for setting people up in traditional paths, but like even that now is really hard because of the job market and the economy in the world. And you graduate not having something, and sometimes there's this like pit in your stomach of like
Hmm.
trying to explain things to people or like, did I make a mistake studying what I did? Or like
Right.
just feeling insecure, even compared to like your peers, where it's like, I'm obviously rooting for everyone around me, but at the same time, I'm like really starting to sweat. And, for you, you had moved away because if I remember correctly, you're a Cincinnati native, correct?
Yes. Born and raised.
Okay. Was there ever a thought of like, do I just move home in this year of not having work? Or was it like the independent contract, the connection, the network you made? you were like, "I can make it through, but this just isn't a permanent situation."
Yeah. Great question. There was a short period where I was like, okay, if I don't have something lined up within like 2 months, there is a strong chance that I might have to move back home to Cincinnati temporarily, at least until I can find something. And it's so funny when you go through struggles and trials and tribulations because as soon as you're ready to give up something,
Yep.
not all the time, not all the time, but there are many times where as soon as you're ready to give up and as soon as you're ready to throw in the towel, something just works out. And I think that's what happened with me.
Okay. And what did that look like? Like, was it like, right during your deadline is, like, when, like, your full-time role found you? Like, walk me through that.
I, so I always say, well, recently I've started to say I don't believe in perfect timing. I just believe in true alignment.
I love that.
It was around September, October of 2024 when I had been hired as a contractor for my current job, actually at Chicago Votes. And I approached my supervisor at the time, and at the same time I approached him, he approached me. I
Oh,
approached him saying, I've been with this organization many times as a contractor, as a board director, and as a fellow, actually. And I'm looking for full-time work, something sustainable. And he had approached me saying there was a position that happened to be open in their communications department
oh,
because of someone that had transitioned out. And so that's what I mean when I say there's no such thing as perfect timing, more so true alignment, because we were both on the same page at the same time.
yeah.
But I also had put myself out there. It wasn't something that was just given to
No. And what did putting yourself out there look like in a post-grad era for you?
me. It looks like a lot of telling people who you are, but also telling people what you want to create. And I know we're in this era of like, everybody wants to be so private and mysterious and create their own aesthetic, but there's something truly valuable about saying like, oh yes, I'm a director, even though like maybe I only have one or two products under my belt. There's something so passionate or so powerful about being like, yes, I'm a model and not being signed,
Yeah,
Something about just telling people who you are without having specific labels attached to it and certain credentials. Like if I say I'm a director, that's exactly who I am. And once you start to put yourself out there, you see the types of opportunities that will naturally come to you.
I love
Yes,
that
you still have to go out and get it, but I think there's something powerful about the power of the tongue too.
100%. And I think you definitely embodied it even in your introduction on the podcast. I think you started off with like, "I'm Trey and I'm a multifaceted creative," or like
Hmm.
something around that line. And I was like, I love that because even I struggle with how I label myself as a creative because I am a content strategist at my 9 to 5, but then I podcast, like, outside. I also write. I also, like, am trying to build my own social media following. And it's like, it's very hard to find a term besides a creative that encompasses that, but also doesn't feel too vague. And I love this,
Right.
this notion of like, you just say what you are and that can change. And also, it can be multiple things at once. And I think
Yeah.
it's such a simple concept, but it's so hard to, like, remember that when you're not in the trenches, but when you're in this large phase of discovery of trying to figure out who you are and how you define yourself.
Hmm.
And so for you, you're putting yourself out there. You are putting labels on the work you have. You're doing work as well, which, you mentioned you're like, I'm a director, even though I have one or two. You're a director. Anything above zero makes you a director, as you state.
Correct.
But you've also mentioned, and I don't think we've gotten to this in our actual interview yet, but you've been doing film festivals.
Hmm.
Uh, so, walk our audience through that because I haven't had anyone in the film industry. Well, I've had actors, but I haven't had directors really represented on the podcast yet. And I feel like it's an industry the average person doesn't know a lot about. One, tell us about your projects, but also then what does it mean to go to festivals and what were your roles in film festivals?
The process of getting into a film festival is a very complex one. So there's a lot of databases out there that will give you access to what's happening in terms of film festivals. The one I love the most is Film Freeway. I think they make it very easy for you to apply to festivals and see what deadlines are, etc., and things like that. When I did my graduate thesis back in 2023, It's called A Conversation, and I wrote and directed it. I was just applying to film festivals that fit the category. So a lot of film festivals will be like, okay, this is for experimental film. This is for drama films. These are for students. These are for people of color. These are for queer people, whatever.
Mm.
I was just applying to anything I could get my hands on, anything that the film fit under, whether it be a student film festival, a short film festival, a international film festival, anything that I qualified under, I was just submitting. And
Uh,
so I was pleasantly surprised when I got a couple of hits back saying, "Oh, you've been accepted to this."
mm.
And to answer your question further, what it looks like to be in a film festival is to, first of all, be featured in the film festival, number one, and to get exposure. I think that's one of the most important things a film festival provides is exposure. And it provides you an audience to people who may not have ever interacted with a film before. And so a lot of film festivals have awards also where you get recognized publicly
Oh,
for either best directing, best cinematography, best editing, things like that. And I won't say it gets you more opportunity, but I will say it allows you to not only be honored, but it allows other people to see that your work is something to be awarded, right? And that makes you more
ultimately
proud. So
validation.
yeah. It provides that validation also. But I think, speaking for myself, it makes me more hungry to be a part of more film festivals and actually get more of my work out there. Because as I was saying before, I've seen it work out for me in the past, so there's no way it can't work out for me in the future.
Absolutely. And tell us about your projects that have gone to film festivals.
Yeah, so my first one, a conversation that I wrote and directed, it's been a part of several different film festivals, either citywide, nationally, or internationally. It won the Audience Award and Best Cinematography at the Big Shoulders International Student
That's
Film Festival
wonderful.
back in 2024. And then it's made its way around the nation and different countries. It was in the Love and Hope International Film Festival in Barcelona, Spain, where it was nominated for Best American Film. It's been a part of the Soul for Real Film Festival and so many other film festivals, including Over the Rhine International Film Festival
Cool.
based out of Cincinnati. So that was very exciting because a
Yeah.
lot of my family and friends from Cincinnati who had never seen it before were able to enjoy that experience
That's
with
so
me.
beautiful.
My most recent project, though, which I directed and produced, it's a short narrative documentary on the legacy of Black hair. It's called Superpower. That was a part of the Black Harvest Film Festival here in Chicago last fall, which was a very exciting experience. And there was a lineup of different films. We were all part of a program called On My Block, and it was films about Juneteenth and special Chicago landmarks and dating and the South Side and the West Side and things like that. So I feel like it all meshed together really well and showed the power of community.
I love that. For the first project you mentioned, you wrote that in for your part of your thesis for your grad program, correct?
Yes, a conversation that was. Yep.
Yes. And then the second one you directed and produced, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So walk me through with the second project of yours. You're directing, but the writing is not yours. So how did you find the script? How did you find the concept? Or how did they find you, maybe?
Yeah. Since it's a short narrative documentary, there is no formal script per se,
Okay.
but I did come up with a list of questions that I was asking my subject.
Cool. Okay.
So that's what I mean when I say like yes, directed and produced, but technically there is no script, so there was really nothing for me to write.
This makes
What
sense.
my editor and I did in post-production was go through all of the footage and actually weave together one consistent story based on the like I think it was over an hour of footage that we have for everybody. So our job was to boil that down into about 7 or 8 minutes.
Oh,
I
wow.
found those subjects because they were people I either was friends with in the city, had been to college with. There were at least three people in the documentary, not including myself, who graduated from Miami.
Huh.
And then there were some work friends in there, some people I just met from around the way. And so I wanted to bring together different types of Black people
Yeah.
who had different stories to tell about their hair and what that means to them.
And when you set out to do these interviews, even if they're people you know, were you surprised by any of the answers when you started like chopping and filming and recording and like putting this in together into one narrative. Did anything surprise you that you weren't expecting?
One of the things that surprised me was how the pandemic had a big impact on a lot of people's journeys. Because that's something I don't necessarily have to think about with shorter hair, and also something I don't necessarily have to think about as a guy. I
Oh,
feel like a lot of the Black women who had a part, who I invited to be a part of the documentary, were talking about how they were experimenting with different things in the pandemic, and it actually brought them closer to themselves, having that untraditional type of outlet to be able to express themselves. So that was one thing that surprised me. And then another thing that surprised me, but there was one subject who talked about how the legacy of our hair is attached to Africa and how a lot of us will never be able to go and visit that place and actually understand our rich cultural heritage, and how although we may not be able to visit that place, it always lives in us through our roots,
yeah.
aka our scalp.
That's beautiful.
Hmm.
And when you're cutting and you're because over an hour of footage into 7 to 8 minutes, that's a lot.
Hmm.
Um, what does your process look like of what to keep and what maybe, to not what doesn't make the final cut?
Hmm. So I was in the room, myself, my cinematographer, and my editor. My cinematographer and editor were the same person. So we're both hearing all of the subject stories, but there, I took notes, physical notes. But then afterward, there were moments where I was like, okay, I definitely want to keep this, definitely want to keep that. But other than that, it was my friend Jaden's job as the editor to actually go through and see, okay, what moments are fluff, what moments are important, and what moments can we sort of come back to when it's time. So
Yeah,
he actually did a wonderful job of going through every single piece of footage and weaving together a story. And there were like multiple different iterations that we did of it. But overall, I think it flows together in a way that is concise, straightforward, but also educational, which I really appreciate. We also worked with the Chicago Film Archives to weave together archival footage from different eras of Black history, whether it be the 70s, the 80s, or maybe even the early 2000s. So that kind of gave it the more educational piece to it, because you hear people talking about being connected to Africa, for example, and then you see civil rights leaders from like the 70s or 80s talking about Africa.
that's beautiful. And, we've talked a lot about your journey before where you are right now. You've talked a lot
Hmm.
about where you are right now and the things you've recently done. And we've alluded to like, there's this voice inside you, your future self that talks to you and like coaches you and helps you. I think our listeners would love to know like what is in store for the future of Tre King and like what are some things people can look forward to seeing from you? What are things that maybe you're manifesting for yourself right now?
Great question. I think being a couple of years removed from school, Miami and Columbia, and me being fully into my full-time job right now, I'm definitely finding space to, number one, enjoy my personal life
Yeah.
and not always feel like I need to be working on something in order to feel valuable. Now, at the same time, I am also working on another screenplay, so
Cool.
another film. I'm not necessarily sure what that's going to be about yet. I kind of have just loose notes that I write down every now and then, but I'm working on that. I'm also working more on photography projects and making myself a center focal point of my own story, whether that be being the main character of a shoot or like just being in front of the camera. Because as much as I enjoy directing people and being behind the camera, I also love being in front of the camera. So I am focused on a lot more photography projects as well. And then as I said in the beginning, I'm a multidisciplinary creative. I'm also interested in what my personal journey in the future is going to look like and how I'm going to dive into other types of creative mediums that I haven't
Yeah.
necessarily thought about yet. And again, that comes with just enjoying life, personal experiences, friends, things like that. So that's one of the reasons why I'm allowing myself to kind of just be right now.
I love that. And is there a form of media you're like most excited to potentially start like experimenting with, whether that becomes like an actual side thing or just simply for like art of expression, something you're looking forward to trying?
Two things. So number one, editing. I My friends and I recently got together and came up with this fake cooking show type of thing where everybody was given teams and mystery ingredients, and I acted as a director. And I literally just shot it on my phone in my little camcorder. But now I'm editing that project, and through that process, I'm kind of discovering how much I like editing. So I kind of want to
Nice.
get more into that. But the second thing is that through my creative process, I'm realizing how much I want to kind of get into acting
Okay.
a little bit. I've always considered myself a performer, but I've never done acting formally
Yeah.
before. So I want to kind of get more into that. I Last fall I graduated from a improv internship program
So
with IO Theater, and through that I realized how much I want to tap back into my inner performer.
yeah, I love that so much. Um, Recently I've been like having a similar conversation with myself where I'm like, what do I want to do that I haven't done just for the sake of like being a creative? And I've started
Yeah.
sewing, which is so
You
random.
started what?
Sewing.
Oh, yeah.
I've embroidered a lot and like I've done, like an embroidery business with my mom, but I've never sewed to just like enjoy sewing. And
Right.
I'm really bad at it, but I kind of love that because I just feel like having a creative venture for sake of creativity and being really bad at it teaches you a lot about yourself.
Yes.
So I've enjoyed that a ton. Also, as someone who edits not only the show but my own show, I'm glad you're enjoying editing. Editors do not get a lot of love, I think, in the
They
creative
don't.
fields. And I think it's rare for someone to be like, I really enjoy editing. I love it. I love editing both shows. It's what taught me so much about how people speak, how I appear on camera. Which everyone's gonna laugh. This frame is always crooked and it
Mhm.
drives like everyone who listens nuts, and I refuse to change it until the end of the season. Um, but like I love editing, so it warms my heart to hear that you're like starting to really enjoy it as well.
I do, yeah, and there's something powerful about being in control of how the story is perceived,
Yeah.
and, like, those nuances, because 'cause I'm such a big perfectionist, sometimes to my own detriment, but it's like, if this frame is, like, 2 seconds too long, that's gonna influence, like, if the viewer laughs or not, you know?
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
trying to, like, play around with those different nuances of editing and see what I come up with.
I love that, and I'm excited. I'm sure I probably will not see your friend's cooking show, but I can't wait to like to talk to you the next time and just be like, "How did it go? Like, was it?
Yeah.
What'd you guys do with it?" Even if it's just for your friend group, like, how fun is that to have something to look back on?
Exactly, because I was talking about film festivals earlier. I don't want viewers, especially future filmmakers, to hear what I said about film festivals and think that their projects are only valuable if they are accepted into a film festival. Because, like we said earlier, anything we do, as long as we put enough passion into it, is powerful. So, yes,
100%.
I'm also excited about the cooking show. And regardless of if it only lives within the world of my friends and I'm okay with that.
100%. This past weekend, I was helping it was my friend's birthday, and she really wanted to do a very specific TikTok trend.
Mhm.
Directing that 15-second video brought me so much joy than, like, the multi-day shoots I'm doing for work or, like, recording my own content, so, like, you really do forget how much joy, like, a project that, like, maybe isn't viewed by the mass public brings you.
Yes, I agree.
And so to kind of wrap up our episode today, I can't believe it's almost time. We do a Miami rapid fire at the end of all of our episodes, and
Ooh.
so, lock in. Um, if you were to start a business uptown, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on.
I'm
Okay,
holding.
you said it's rapid fire. Hold on. I would start a karaoke business.
Wait, okay. So you'd compete head to head with Brick Street.
Absolutely.
Okay, I respect it.
Yeah. It'd be like an immersive karaoke experience. We'd have a whole like stage and lights and like a performance to make people feel like they're actually like the performer.
I love that. Describe your perfect day in Oxford to me. And yes, you can time travel. People have asked.
Perfect day in Oxford. Okay. Well, first of all, it's a Saturday.
Okay.
Wake up. My friends and I will probably eat something at Armstrong. We will travel uptown by walking. Everything is walking. There's no need to like
Designated.
drive necessarily. Okay, so we're walking to uptown. We hit up the bars a little bit.
Which bars, to be specific?
Okay, Brick Street, O Pub. Oh, see, and I'm forgetting the names of a lot of them, but
Skippers?
specifically those two. And then we would. I'm time traveling back to like 2017 when Sushi Nara was still here. We would
Yes.
go to Sushi Nara, and then if it's football season, we would go to the football game, tailgate a little bit,
Okay.
and after that, we would see where the night takes us.
I love that. That is a perfect day. Um, Speaking of your friends, are there Miamians you would like to give a shout out to that have greatly impacted you as a human being?
Yes. I would love to give a shout out to a lot of people, but I'm gonna try not to forget people. Jermaine Thomas II, he, as we mentioned earlier, was Homecoming King 2019. But beyond that, we're just really good friends and we have worked on so many creative projects together here in Chicago. He actually has photographed the last two fashion shows that I've directed,
Oh,
and we worked together on different film projects and photography projects as well. He's been my muse and I've been his muse.
oh,
So shout out to him. Rashid Owens, for sure. We have worked together on, again, many different creative projects here, and he's been great. Let's see. Nina Allen, we've again worked together on so many different projects. Nana Hama, oh my goodness. Jordan Thompson, Cliff Ryder, Mace Adams, Devin Taylor. Oh my gosh. People are gonna see this and be like, why didn't I get a shout out? There's so many other people. Cody Vandergriff, Bria Lumpkins, Kate DeJesus,
oh,
Grace
Priya
DeJesus.
Lumpkins.
Yes. It's like so many people. Tim Carlin. Oh my goodness. Jeremy. Oh my goodness. That's what I got for now. We could be here all day if I had to shout out everybody.
Well, I love that. And I know, we briefly overlapped on campus, but even to just hear names that are familiar to me, like Jordan Thompson, I was like, yeah, of course, Jordan
Uh,
Thompson. You shout out.
and she's in New York, so it's like the Chicago to New York, and I mean, excuse me, the Miami to Chicago and Miami to New York pipeline is so strong.
Huge, huge. And I love that. And also it's just so evident of like the community you were able to build for yourself at Miami.
Yes.
And I hope like as you're like, oh my God, I'm definitely forgetting someone and I feel awful. Like I hope you reflect on like how wonderful you must be and the impact you had on campus to have such deep, enriching connections that have lasted you 5 years post grad now, which is crazy. What is one piece of advice you would give to our listeners who tend to skew as young alone as they set out on their post grad journeys?
As you transition into your post grad journey, the bad days, the gloomy days, the days where you feel like nothing is working out and nothing will work out are the times where you should ask yourself why you did it in the first place. But also to expand more on that, allow yourself to fully feel your emotions during the bad times, right? And understand that that is a building block to you becoming the person you want to be. Everything's not going to be perfect. Matter of fact, if everything was perfect, then we probably wouldn't have gone to college anyway. So no, nothing will be perfect post grad, but as long as you understand why you did it in the first place, that should be able to fuel you towards where you want to be.
I love that. Thank you,
And
Trey.
also, I will add, never be afraid to change, whether it be your look, your inner circle, your behaviors, your mindset, because the biggest thing you can do to hurt yourself in the long run is to feel like you have nowhere else to go.
I love that. Very true. Um, Thank you, Trey. That was a wonderful conversation. If our listeners want to get in contact with you, if they want to stay up to date of all things Trade King, what is the best way for folks to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is via social media, Instagram particularly, at my name, Tre King, so TRE_KING. I treat my Instagram page as like a digital portfolio for my creative projects. So that's the best way to be reached at.
I love that. And we will be sure to have Trey's handle in our show notes. That way, folks can easily reach it. And Trey, just once again, thank you so much for being on the show today. I've been so excited for this conversation. And like, I feel like a younger version of me is like geeked out that I get to talk to you for a whole hour.
Yay!
Thank you
Oh,
so
this was wonderful. I'm glad this finally worked out.
Thank you. And for our listeners who are wondering, Trey was actually going to be a season one guest, and we had the craziest tech mishap of all time. So I'm so grateful that season two worked out.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.